Everyone thought coming home early would be a blessing. For him, it became the moment everything cracked open. He unlocked his door expecting silence, but found tension waiting inside the walls. This story promises a truth so strange that even the police would question what was real. He had lived in the quiet HOA neighborhood for years, paying every fee, following every rule, never causing trouble. That night, exhaustion pulled him home hours early from a canceled work trip. As his car rolled in, porch lights flicked on across the street. Curtains shifted. Eyes watched. The HOA president, known for polite smiles and sharp letters, stood on her lawn with a phone already raised. She stared like he did not belong there. Before he reached the door, red and blue lights reflected off his windows. She had already called the police, claiming a suspicious man was breaking in. He stood frozen, key still in hand, realizing this was only the beginning. What the officer would soon uncover would unravel weeks of lies, secret access, and a shocking misuse of power. The night air felt heavy, as if the neighborhood itself was holding its breath, waiting for the truth to surface. Right then. Slowly, the officer stepped out calmly, shining a light across the doorway and then at the man's tired face. He explained he lived there, voice steady but confused, while the HOA president insisted something was wrong. She spoke with authority, claiming rules had been broken, access denied, ownership questioned. The officer asked for proof. Documents came out, hands slightly shaking, but everything checked out. Still, the HOA president did not back down. She whispered about unauthorized entry, about seeing strangers before, about safety concerns. The officer decided to look inside, not as an accusation, but as procedure. That is when the air changed. Inside, nothing was damaged, yet something felt used. Furniture slightly shifted. Cabinets not quite how he left them. The refrigerator held food he did not buy. A blanket folded on the couch carried a scent that was not his. The officer noticed too, eyes narrowing, curiosity turning serious. This was no simple misunderstanding anymore. The HOA president grew quiet, her confidence thinning as questions piled up. Every detail hinted that someone had been there, comfortably, repeatedly. The truth pressed closer with every careful step the officer took. The officer asked a question no one expected. Who else had keys to the house? The man answered honestly, saying only the HOA had emergency access, never used before. Silence filled the room. The officer requested HOA access logs, something routine but rarely questioned. The president hesitated, then claimed the records were unavailable. That hesitation changed everything. With permission, the officer contacted the HOA management system directly. Minutes felt like hours as data loaded. When the report appeared, it told a quiet but devastating story. Multiple entries. Repeated access. Always logged under the HOA president's code. Dates stretched back weeks. The man felt his chest tighten as realization settled in. While he worked long hours and traveled, someone had been living there. Not hiding. Not sneaking. Living. The officer looked at the HOA president, now pale, and asked her to explain. Her voice faltered as excuses formed and collapsed. The power she wielded suddenly felt fragile, exposed under plain light. What began as control had turned into accountability, and there was no easy escape now. Every breath in the room felt loud, measured, and filled with consequence. Tonight, the HOA president finally spoke, admitting she used the house while claiming it was vacant for inspection. She said it started as convenience and became routine. No rent paid. No permission given. She believed the rules protected her. The officer explained calmly that authority never replaced consent. What she called access was unlawful use. The man listened quietly, emotions rising and settling like waves. Anger mixed with disbelief, then clarity. He had followed rules out of respect, while she twisted them for comfort. Neighbors gathered outside, whispers spreading as reality replaced rumor. The officer documented everything, careful and precise. The HOA president's confidence collapsed into silence. This was the moment the story turned from accusation to exposure. The neighborhood watched power shift without a single shout. The house no longer felt violated, but reclaimed. Truth stood taller than status, visible to everyone present. Accountability arrived not with drama, but with calm certainty that could not be argued away. For the first time, the rules applied equally, and the silence felt earned. Everyone sensed that consequences were unfolding beyond this single night. Slowly, the following days brought quiet shockwaves through the HOA. Meetings were cancelled. Notices rewritten. Authority questioned. The officer's report moved forward, and the truth could not be buried. The man returned to normal routines, but everything felt sharper now. Neighbors who once avoided eye contact nodded with understanding. The house felt like his again, not because walls changed, but because respect returned. Behind closed doors, the HOA president faced consequences that rules could no longer soften. Her position meant nothing without trust. The community learned how easily power drifts when unchecked. Policies were reviewed, access restricted, transparency demanded. This was not revenge. It was correction. And correction, though quiet, reshaped everything. The man did not celebrate, he reflected. He understood how close he came to being erased from his own life. Peace returned gradually, built on awareness, fairness, and a shared understanding of boundaries. The lesson lingered quietly, reminding everyone that oversight matters most when no one is watching. With clarity and resolve, the neighborhood chose balance over blind obedience. A fair ending, for now. Tomorrow. Time passed, but the story stayed alive in quiet conversations. It became a reminder shared with new residents and old skeptics alike. The man regained trust in his space, yet stayed aware of how quickly it was taken. Systems were not enemies, but they required limits. The HOA restructured, adding checks that protected residents instead of titles. No one mentioned names anymore. The lesson mattered more than blame. The house stood unchanged, but it now symbolized something earned. Returning home felt peaceful again, not because danger vanished, but because truth had spoken. Even the police officer checked in later, ensuring closure felt complete. Nothing dramatic followed. And that normalcy became the real victory. Stability returned through small, consistent actions. Trust rebuilt slowly, supported by transparency and shared responsibility. The man understood that safety is not enforced by fear, but protected through fairness and respect. His early return that night became a turning point, not just for him, but for everyone watching. What seemed like inconvenience became clarity, reshaping how the community chose to move forward. In silence, progress continued. Together. Always. In the end, the shocking twist was simple and undeniable. The call to the police was meant to protect power, but it exposed misuse instead. A man coming home early revealed weeks of hidden comfort built on someone else's trust. The house was never vacant. It was taken. And the truth returned it. This story spread because it touched something familiar. Authority without accountability fails. Rules without fairness collapse. The neighborhood learned quietly, but deeply. One moment changed everything, proving that vigilance matters even in peaceful places. The man closed his door that night with confidence restored. He was home, fully and finally. The lesson lingered beyond the street. Beyond the rules, reminding viewers that truth arrives when least expected. Sometimes, the smallest timing change uncovers the biggest reality, leaving no room for denial or excuses. It ends not with noise, but with understanding that fairness must always be defended. Always. This moment mattered deeply. Truly, and that was the final twist in this unbelievable HOA story. If you loved the drama, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment sharing your thoughts. It really helps this channel grow.